Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 160 of the AllYouCanHear podcast. I'll be your host today, Patrick, and joining me today are my three controversial co-hosts.
It's Jojima Jonathan.
Oh.
My name is Claymation Colt.
You could have said Katakuri Colt. What the fuck?
Shut up.
I'm Western
My
Wenzel.
intro.
I'm Western Wenzel.
Today, we have a very specific topic of discussion. We'll be taking a sample or dive into a director today, as a director that has, for a long time, really sort of intrigued us with his very diverse and eclectic body of work. And today, we'll be discussing, in specific, the films of Takashi Miike. This isn't the first time we had an encounter with his movies. If you remember way back in episode 130, we discussed one of his films called Audition, and today we'll be discussing four of his films that are among his most popular, and in some cases, most controversial, and his very story body to work. Just so you know, before we dive into the movies into detail, just know there will be spoilers. So if you want to consider just like a companion piece for after you see these movies, as a heads up, there will be sort of content warning for this episode as well.
Probably for just one movie in particular, but yeah, just keep that in mind.
So we'll definitely remind everyone about that content warning once we close to that movie. Just know going into this, there will be discussion of like heavy like violence and sexual themes. So just be aware for those who have certain sensitivities to those subjects. So, but just getting down to the brass tacks, because we're talking about Takashi Miike, Japanese film director who was born August 24th, 1960. He made his directorial debut in 1991. He's a highly prolific director. He has made nearly 100 movies and often directing 3 to 4 movies in a single year.
Like at his peak, he was directing like 5 movies a year, which is fucking insane.
Woo!
Yeah, he's an insane person.
Like I saw this quote from him where he was talking about how he would take 15 minutes off his lunch every day to make an entire another film, just as sort of like a joke.
Wow.
Man,
So
some of the ones I've seen, I believe it. I've seen some bad movies.
But in addition to his prolificity as a director, he's also very controversial because he's widely known for including like gratuitous amounts of violence and sexually graphic material in all of his films, and in addition to like just general bizarre, surreal, and upsetting imagery. So he definitely comes with a lot of like baggage and clamor, and
really, it's not like all of his movies, but the ones that have them are probably his most well known.
Some of his most prominent and famous influences for his filmography is David Lynch,
Yeah, I can tell.
David Cronenberg, Paul Verhoeven. Majority of his work is made of like a theatrical release films, and he frequently uses the earnings from those theatrical movies to fund his sort of smaller scale releases that often go straight to DVD. While he's known for sort of reveling in the subject matter in his bigger release films, he definitely really takes special pride in his smaller films in order to really skirt the lines of like movie censorship, and just has a greater degree of creative control, because he doesn't have a bigger studio telling him what he can and can't do.
Yeah, and I was doing a little research beforehand, and a lot of the film movement he came up in Japan, I think it was called V Cinema, was very much a direct response to sort of the theatrical film industry kind of tanking in the 90s, which I mean had been slowly declining since like the 60s and 70s, but really shit the bed in the 90s as Japan's economy went in the toilet.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of the movies in the sort of V cinema movement were they cut back a lot on like their budgets, but they were like smaller scale movies, and there wasn't as much executive oversight. So there was a lot of creative freedom a lot of the directors had with their films, and just sort of how like creative control he just has with most of his movies. He's expressed interest in doing a mainstream Hollywood film, like an English language one, but he said any attempt he's made to come over here, it's so highly bureaucratic and just soulless, and he just cannot deal with that level of studio.
And that being said, like some of his movies like feel like they're a little bit more higher quality than like current day Hollywood movies. Like it's not we're not going to talk about it today, but I watched 13 Assassins today, and it was very, very good.
Well, that's also because 13 Assassins came out
2010, but
2010.
still.
So yeah,
but it's
but I
very
mean-
high quality.
I mean, for that, but like, when you get into like the 2010s, the quality does go up for a lot of films, I would assume, or I'd like to think.
And that's also in the eye of the beholder as well.
Yeah, and I am God.
Fuck you.
All right, no, that's the end of the podcast.
All right, thanks for listening.
Now, like we said, his movies are known for a certain type of content, very graphic and violence and sort of sexual content. But that doesn't mean that he's isn't capable of breaking out of that. Like, he's known for action and Yakuza films, but like we said, with the biggest libraries he has, you really see sort of just the range he's able to pull off. Like, he's done children's films, he's done family dramas, teen dramas, period pieces, crime dramas. He's even directed like anime adaptations with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 4. He's done video game adaptation with the Ace Attorney movie.
Yeah, I think he's like he didn't direct, but he's pretty involved in the Yakuza series video games in a producer role.
He's even directed the Kabuki play.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We were saying with the Yakuza games, like, he's actually portrayed himself in video games before. Like, he has cameos in the No More Heroes series. I think he came in the second one, Desperate Struggle.
Okay.
But just showing to the level of intensity that his movies can provide, he was once asked to be a part of a Showtime horror anthology called Masters of Horror. It has like a lot of the big names that associate with John, like John Carpenter, for instance. He directed an episode. Unfortunately, it was deemed too explicit to air. And the series creator, while praising Miike's efforts as a director in that film, he said it was one of the most disturbing things he's ever seen.
What the fuck?
I can believe it after watching one of these movies.
Yeah.
I can believe it after watching 2 of these movies. Because, we'll get to it.
Just one last little fun fact about Miike. He said one of his most favorite movies is Paul Verhoeven's Starship Troopers.
Oh, yes.
That would make so much sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Now that we have a little bit of an overview about Miike's sort of general body of work and who he is, we're going to dive into the first of our quartet of films, the first one being 2008's Sukiyaki Western Django. And that's currently streaming on places like Tubi, Sling TV, Vudu, YouTube, Google Play, and Amazon Prime. There's available on all of those. It's probably one of the most widely available of his films.
Yeah, and this is the newest of the ones we've watched.
This is the newest of the 4 that we'll be discussing today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sukiyaki Western Django is a story about a lone gunman who rides into a dilapidated western town populated by 2 warring clans, the Hike and the Genji, and he is quickly embroiled in their long-standing blood feud for wealth and power.
Hey guys. Watch this. Watch. I've always been an anime otaku at heart.
God.
That took me out. Like, I was so confused.
Yeah, like, when you guys talked about that bit, I was like, what's so funny? And then he does it, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, me and Pat were watching it, and holy, like, we had a fucking come apart. And fucking Tarantino, as we buried the lead. Tarantino's in this movie.
Quentin Tarantino is in this frickin' movie, and what bothers me, like, is that he pulls this off, and then I remember that this motherfucker said the N-word so many times in Pulp Fiction and directed that movie, and I'm just like, what is this? Oh my god.
Quentin Tarantino, he's an interesting figure in the film. Like, film's narrator, but he's also a character within the plot of the story.
Yeah.
The opening sequence where he just, like, catches that snake, squeezes out the egg, and then fights off those bandits. Totally bizarre, and really sets the tone for what the rest of the movie will be like.
Which is anime as fuck.
Oh yeah. Oh my god.
He almost said shit.
You almost said the S.
Anime as fuck. And like, in a good way, too. I personally enjoyed this movie quite a bit.
I really had a lot of fun with this one. One thing I thought was interesting about the movie, because this is a Western, it takes place in essentially Nevada, but it has all these Japanese trappings. And so everybody in the film is Japanese except for, Quentin Tarantino. But everyone speaks English. But what makes it interesting is that almost no one in the film spoke a lick of English. They all learned their lines phonetically.
Yeah, you can tell just from the delivery of the lines.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things I really like about this movie is because it's always been compared that westerns were like Hollywood's version of the samurai movie, and so this movie definitely is a marriage of both those concepts, and because they share a lot of very similar tropes in the sort of broad sense. You know, there's very, very much like cultural massive differences there.
There's also a
But-
cowboy samurai.
Yeah, I mean, this movie should just be Cowboy Samurais.
Yeah.
And that's just sort of like, if that sounds appealing to you, you'll love this. It's just that fucking over the top.
But don't worry, the cowboy samurai is a piece of shit, so.
Yeah. Like almost everybody in this movie is a piece of shit.
You know,
yeah, there's not really many good people.
except for the kid. And
Yeah,
the,
that's true.
And the Native American person.
Yeah. That we don't... Did we even learn their name?
No.
Yeah. Guardian?
Like, you know, you know what? It was funny because, like, at the end of the movie, again, we said spoilers. After the kid's mom dies, and like his grandmother dies, and they like bury everybody, not everybody, just their friends. They bury their friends. The main character, the cowboy, he's just like, your mom was a swell lady. Like, you're only like, what? Like, she just sucked this man's dick in the hotel. Like, not the hotel, the Genji temple. Like, like, don't. What? I mean, the kid doesn't know that, but shut up, man. What a
It's like an
cheesy.
Amazon review, Wenzel. He's telling her kid it was bad. It was weird. The movie's good.
Wenzel has a habit of explaining his movie reviews in reverse fashion, going from the end scene and working backwards.
Because I'm just pulling out what I thought was like what really just stood out to me. Also, the samurai
Personally-
cowboy says a lot of cowboy slang, which I thought was hilarious. Don't be a lily liver.
Yeah, that was weird.
I loved it.
I did too. There were definitely a lot of like Western, like the genre Western, like various idioms and stuff. But it's said through like a Japanese voice speaking English phonetically. So it is definitely jarring, but it's very charming in my opinion.
Because I know just reading reviews for Sukiyaki, from what I can tell, this is probably one of the more poor review films.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I know a lot of
really?
people were turned off by sort of the zaniness of the action and sort of just the fact that all the speaking roles are from non-English speaking actors and it's all done phonetically. That was a big turnoff for a lot of people, it seems like. And for me, I like, you know, it's charming. Like
Yeah.
I like the juxtaposition of the Eastern and Western like aesthetics and just sort of ideas in this setting, and like I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and especially since like years upon years, people have been saying, you know, westerns and samurais are very, you know, similar genres and serve similar functions in their respective cultures. So to see those worlds collide in such a very eclectic and interesting way was, I don't know, this movie was really fun.
I mean, like they were literally like colliding. There was like Japanese temples in a Western town. You know?
It's like the outside of the temples would be, you know, like, you know, traditional Japanese temples, and then on the inside it would be a fucking saloon.
Yeah,
Western.
exactly. Well, I should say the Genji temple inside was a saloon, but like the regular Heike temple inside of it was traditional Japanese.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was interesting. Which it's also funny because the boss of the Heike, Kiyomori, I think was his name.
Kiyomori is the leader of
Henry. Jesus Christ, Cole, you just yelled into my ear.
FKA Kiyomori. He was sort of inspired to sort of reinvigorate this long-standing feud after he read The War of the Roses, which is, you know, the English Civil Wars.
Specifically, Henry VI plays from Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Which I find is very much an inside joke, because if you know anything about English history, you know, like Henry VI was basically a kid.
Yeah.
So and was and because and in more his advisors more or less ruled the country. So to have him kind of appropriate this
title,
this title from this English king, it's like, why not Henry the Fourth or the Fifth, which were definitely more akin to the persona he was wanting to create. But there's definitely, and they mention throughout the movie the War of the Roses, which I found really interesting, and it's very much saturated in the aesthetics, because you got the
Heike are red and then the Genji are white, which is exactly the War of the Roses.
The Lancasters were red and then the Yorks were white.
Exactly. And we'll just call him Henry, because I just love that he said, "Stop calling me that."
Yeah, and he's very insistent. He's like, "Call me Henry."
And the thing is too, he beat up the guy who called him like his original name, and it's like he just announced that he was going to be called Henry from then on. Like, okay, dude, how is he supposed to know that? But let's make it known, the boss is an idiot. Henry's an idiot, which I think is also funny.
Also,
because...
if we're gonna like call out like small things that are dumb, how could that bullet curve? That was dumb.
I'm sorry. that was awesome though. Come on.
Yeah, it was awesome. I'm joking because like you just said it was dumb. How could he have known that he just announced that? That's so wacky.
No, I wasn't saying that was wacky. I was saying like that's just the character itself. This guy is just cruel. That's why I was just trying to get at. He's cruel,
Yeah.
but no. That was this entire movie's wacky.
That just sort of like the idea of what you're going to get in this, or what this movie is about, when you have a guy who's like Wanted style curving fucking bullets.
Well, I do think it's interesting how, like, Yoshitsune is leader of the Genji clan. Mm-hmm. Like, he's definitely a more, like, restrained and conniving character, but he has, like, the most, like, outlandish and, like, fanciful abilities. Like, he's very adept with the sword. He does, like we said, the fucking curvature of the bullet. Like, he just fires in the air, but it hits Henry and the side and the back, just, like, chakra control the bullet or some bullshit. It's just a lot of fun, and because you see how like very like flamboyantly and garishly dressed like opposing sides, very indicative of like Yakuza, and sort of like their swagger and demeanor and sort of general presentation, just on top of like the mishmash of Eastern and Western apparel. It's sort of funny, like the main character, the gunman, he's sort of almost incidental to the main story. He's just sort of like a product by which you see the two clashing ideals.
Yeah, he's very much a Mad Max type figure, where he is more of a passive protagonist, because more of the stuff just kind of happens to him. Yeah. He just kind of stumbles into all this stuff.
But the thing is, though, too, is that like he's also what they call in the movie a half breed. His mother and father, one of them, I can't remember which one. They were Haiki and Genji, and they ended up having him, and they were actually killed, and that's why he's kind of like the way he is today. And something I was gonna say too about the leader of the Genji, was it Yoshitomi?
Yoshitsune?
Yeah, Yoshitsune is the leader of the Genji.
Yoshitsune, he whenever he like the wind started blowing, I'm sorry, I'm going back to the bullet curving thing. When he aimed and then the wind started blowing and then he pointed the gun away, I was like, no, there's no freaking way he's about to shoot in the air and that bullet's gonna hit him. The wind's gonna drive the bullet into that man, and that's exactly what he did, and I lost my fucking mind. That's all I wanted to say about that.
I'm in the same boat. That part was it was a little wacky. Even though, like, just before that, there was a scene where the man pulls out a giant Gatling gun and just, like, mows down all the samurai cowboys.
And but the thing, though? That's more believable.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it could happen. It's just, it only had, like, one, maybe 20-round mag. It just plops it in there and it shoots for a solid 2 minutes.
Yeah.
That's another thing about these Takashi Miike movies. Gun magazines do not matter. You have infinite ammo.
Suspend all disbelief.
Yeah.
Well, if you learn anything from westerns, the Gatling gun's always the big surprise weapon, the big thing at the end, where it's like, oh, we got to get something to fix those bad guys, and then they come out with the big ass honking like machine gun and just mow everybody down. Just some of the other characters, that sort of we find out about Ruriko. She seems like she's just a bit of a drunkard, the general store owner, ostensibly a neutral party who sort of introduced the gunmen to the setting, and then over the course of the plot, we find about more of her story and her connection to the two clans.
And she becomes the best character in this fucking
The
movie.
the bloody
Fight me.
Benton. I that was like probably the one twist I did not expect. I was like, oh my god, she's the bloody Benton. Holy crap.
I can't believe she trained under Quentin Tarantino.
Which was also crazy, and she got impregnated by him. It's like, okay.
Which leads to such a like in a movie full of surreal moments, leads to the most surreal moment where it cuts to Ruriko is sent her her assistant off to procure like supplies and weapons for the upcoming battle, which leads to Quentin Tarantino's re-entry into the film in the present day, where he basically looks like Emperor Palpatine in a steampunk wheelchair.
Exactly.
Emperor
Yeah.
Palpatine who's had a stroke.
That's just Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah.
We find out that Ruriko and Peringo, which is Wintger's character, had a son named Akira, and Tarantino always says, "I always an anime otaku in my heart, so that's why I named my son." It's just like breaking the wall, breaking whatever weird dimensional barrier between us and the audience. It's like, what the fuck?
He looked right at the camera.
I've been an anime otaku at heart. So how's my boy? And then there's just silence. And it's like, oh, I don't think you want to know what happened to your son.
Yeah, and kind of going back to the whole Shakespeare parallel, there's a Romeo and Juliet subplot involving Ruriko and Tarantino's son and another.
And Akira, who is their son, he's a part of the Hieke clan,
Okay,
and then Shizuka, which is part of the Genji clan, and they eloped in secret, but eventually catch the attention and the ire of their respective families, which leads to tragedy.
Yeah.
Because Akira is killed by the Hieke, and then Shizuka is more or less abused and controlled by the Reds and then the Whites, and so she's sort of trying to surreptitiously make a better life for her son, their son Heihachi, who is traumatized and turned mute by the incident, but all keeping the demands of the Genji suppressed so they won't cause as much trouble.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's definitely a little bit of like sort of a convoluted, well, who's related to who sort of thing.
And plus, I'm just sort of generally lost in these sort of big warring like blood feuds because there's like 50, 60 people in either clan, and like they're all somehow related to each other. Like, how does this work?
Yeah.
I you know.
He's got to keep it in the family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, with some of them, with how their teeth, I can believe it. Just how crazy some of them are, like the white guy with the crossbow. Oh my god, gunslinger man shot a freaking crossbow bolt in midair. That was crazy too. And then the bloody Benton did it. Oh man. Oh, the action in this movie is fun.
Oh yeah.
Just in sort of terms of just like the high grade silly action, like when the gunslinger first gets to town, he sort of blows a cartoon hole through one of the bad guys, and he's just like, well shit, and plops over.
Well, and that's after someone shoots arrow through that hole to hit somebody else.
No, that's when the Genji clan get to that town. Then the guy that has like the very furry hat, he shoots a hole because he's like a big gun. He shoots a hole through a guy, and then the crossbow guy shoots a crossbow bolt through that hole into another guy. Because it was actually kind of funny. The boss was using multiple of his underlings as shields, and his like right hand man, he literally grabbed him and he was like, "We really need to fatten you up." That was a really good bit too.
One of the biggest set pieces of the movie is like the final confrontation between the remnants of the Hieke, which is basically, at this point, Henry and his Gatling gun, and the gunslinger Ruriko, now in full bloody Benton mode, just gunslinging badass Biddy,
Yeah,
and the rest of the Genji clan. And it is just a great, crazy, over-the-top battle. Just like just random explosions in this small western town.
And it sort of culminates to where it goes to like a classic samurai type duel with Yoshisune and the gunslinger, and then it just starts snowing out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was so.
It's sort of because a lot of samurai movies, that's sort of how those movies.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, what the fuck?
And also, the Genji's colors are white. See, it's funny
Yeah.
because before that, everything was on fire, red blood. That was the Heiki, and then at the end, it was the Genji with the snow. Man, it was poetic, and that was like when we said anime, like everything else like was anime, but this ending sequence between the gunslinger and the leader of the Genji was pure anime. Like it was so freaking good.
It was a classic samurai duel in the sense of it's just like two guys staring each other down, and they just have this like very brief altercation. But in that altercation, fucking Yatsune is like literally slicing bullets midair with his fucking sword.
He has his gun, he drops it, brings out his sword, and starts charging. And I'm thinking, this is stupid. He's totally gonna hit him. So the gunslinger shoots at him, and he's literally cutting the bullets. And there's even a point with CG where it shows him cutting the bullet in half. But luckily, the gunslinger has his gun. He uses the gun to block. He blocks his sword. It goes into the part where the trigger meet
the grip of the gun, basically.
Yeah, the trigger guard.
Yeah, and it's like in that moment, it's like, oh man, how's he gonna get out of this? Motherfucker, gunslinger pulls out a derringer hidden in his sleeve and pops him in the face. Good shit.
Yeah, and then we were talking about how like with the Hiike, everything was on red and on fire, and then it started snowing like the Genji. And then when old homeboy gunslinger shoots Yoshisune in the face, the blood splatters on the snow.
So who wins in the end? Was it the Heiki or Genji? Nobody
Because
won.
literally everybody's dead. That's it
Yeah.
for the
blood.
gunslinger and the boy and the mountaineer that helps him out at sort of the denouement, at the trouble of the movie. I just want to go back because I just love Ruriko in this movie. Like everybody has a little badass moment, sure, but like a trope I want more movies from now on is just an old lady with fucking guns just whooping ass. We got Sarah Connor in Terminator. We need more of this. I want grannies with guns. God damn it!
And you know what? Ruriko, kind of hot. I'll say it.
Can't agree.
Kicking ass. She looked awesome, to be honest.
Yeah.
Something that I thought was great too. Like, when the sheriff. Oh man, I was so pissed when the sheriff shot Bloody Benton. He gets shot several times, but doesn't die. But the one thing that kills him is, I think it was the
mountaineer man.
Yeah, the Native American person who literally throws a wooden cross at the sheriff and it literally stabs into him. It was crazy.
Throws a grave marker like a giant shuriken, just like skewers him. And what was so crazy about, like, even though Bloody Benton got shot, the way she reacted, just like, bitch, did you just do that?
Literally,
Like,
that's
she was
literally,
more,
yeah.
like,
It was
annoyed and like mortally wounded.
It was so good because she was just walking and she was like, really? And then she throws her gun and I'm just like, oh, please God, don't die. Oh man, but she dies. Rest in peace.
And then also, like, the sheriff has like this weird split personality thing going on,
Because that wasn't present at the start of me. Like, he seemed, kind of sycophantish, but still fairly level-headed. And then when the drama starts to heat up, he starts developing in a private moment this like split personality. He's essentially employed by the Hieke, but he's kind of playing both sides.
Yeah. For his own benefit, but he ends up getting a fucking cross stake through the chest.
Which, I don't know how he's still alive. He should have died when he was being dragged by the horse, because there was a point when he's getting dragged that he literally he
folds backwards.
He literally gets pulled backwards to where he's bent. Like, he's literally like
you hear his bones cracking too.
He's folded. He's folded, and it's like I was like thinking, oh my God, he's finally dead. Like, that's crazy. No, no, he literally wakes up out of a grave, literally a tombstone, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna go back to town. Or he has a moment with his personalities where he's like deciding whether to go back to town or just leave, but he ends up having to go back to town because he uses a body human meat shield for Henry.
We're just talking about how like we're surprised, like why didn't he die? What the heck? And I always just go back to the part where that guy curved the bullets.
Yeah, exactly.
matter.
You have to. It's like, don't think about it. It's just a movie. It's fun. Have fun.
Because that sort of part and parcel with most of Miike's movies is just absurdity. That's something you have to accept walk into any of his films, and especially this one where it's more campy and fun.
Mm-hmm.
Even though this seems to be on the lower end of the general reviews, this is obviously one of our collective favorites of the bunch.
No, personally, I think it's okay. It's probably it's down there. It's number 3 out of the 4.
For me, it's I would put it at number 2. I liked it a bit.
I think for me, it's now that y'all are talking about it. For me, it's probably 3 because there's going to be 2 movies we get to later on.
Well, the thing is that you say that, and like at first I was like, oh maybe, but then one of the movies, like not the last one that I know we're going to talk about is going to be the last one, but like one of them is just there's just one scene that just completely throws me out of the film. I'm just like, nope, can't like it. We'll get to it.
But to wrap up with Django, this was my second favorite, and I think this is something that's well worth looking into. There is some violence and some like sexual content, but I think this is definitely an easier film of the 4 to watch.
Yeah, and the violence is definitely more movie. It's definitely more cartoony and and more fun. It's some of the...
We say that, but people get straight up like blown holes in the katana straight through the skull.
And also the woman, the mother of Heihachi, she gets shot with a crossbow, and then the man who shoots her attempts to rape her as she's dying.
Yeah,
she's good. She got a rough road in this movie.
Oof.
Yeah, that poor woman.
Yeah.
But we also say that relative to the rest of the movies.
Oh, that is true.
List.
Yeah.
So, definitely recommend.
Definitely recommend this one. All right, moving on to our second film, we have 1999's Dead or Alive.
Oh man,
Yeah.
we're getting right. Okay.
And
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
And just so you know, this is not an adaptation of the Dead or Alive games. Just putting that out there now.
It is not related at all.
No, this is a complete original property from Miike and the writers.
Yeah, and this is currently streaming on iTunes and Amazon Prime. This probably has the fewest spots to watch, but it is out there if you look for it.
Yeah.
And this is actually the first installment of the DOA trilogy. The trick with this trilogy is that every movie is unrelated to the previous one, sharing only Miike as a director and the 2 main leads, which is Rike Takeuchi and Sho Aikawa. They're in every film as the main leads.
I love
And specifically,
Fantasy.
the first one is it's set in the underground Shinjuku, which is just rife with drugs and sex and violence, and it follows the story of a Japanese cop and a Chinese gangster that slowly become entangled in an escalating crime war in Shinjuku that threatens the lives of everyone involved.
And
All right, I'll get it. I'm just gonna say my piece. There's actually 2 things that maybe take me out of it. One thing, guy jerks off a dog. Number 2.
Oh yeah, that was fucking weird. And then
number 2 is girl dies in her own shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what
movie.
when as soon as he said, "Hey, jerk this guy," like, oh my god, I don't even want to repeat this. When the guy says, "Hey, jerk this dog off," I was like, "Wait a minute." Hold on, and like I paused it and I just walked away. I was like, I'm out of this movie right now. And I came back.
Hey, you can't say it's unrealistic.
No, I mean no, it's not.
There's stuff like
oh
that.
no, I know there's stuff like that, but like, I don't want to watch it.
They don't show you him doing it. It's more of a background thing. Like,
But literally,
it's a bad thing.
But literally,
but still, it's not
not shown. But like, the thing is,
which is actually some sort of restraint for me again.
but the thing is though, he's literally holding the dog down, and you just see his right arm moving. Like that's it though. You know it's happening, and then they go. Oh my god, I don't even. It's disgusting, and I hate it. And
yeah,
that just completely like I can't like I had to pause like. I paused this movie several times, not only because those parts, but also just because it was really boring to me personally. But yeah, that's my shtick for right now.
I don't know how you found it boring. This movie was butt fuck wild.
I absolutely loved the main character, the main Yakuza guy. The way he just the way he was. He was crazy as hell.
Yeah, he was like just like 90s cool personified. He is like slick black hair, sunglasses, and a long trench coat. And just like this permanent scowl the entire movie.
yeah.
But yeah.
Personally, I think my views on this movie is that the beginning segment, like 15 minutes, I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed the last 15 minutes a lot as well. And the in-between part, I was okay with.
Yeah, I will say a lot of the movies we watched definitely had second act slumps where, like, you know, like especially like the middle, like up to like 2/3, I was definitely checking my watch, be like, okay, come on, let's get to the point, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So like I can see where you're coming from in that regard.
Yeah, but there was some good in the middle. Like specifically, I'm gonna pull this out because it made me giggle. Was one of the guys was getting a gun pointed at him, and he starts to batter and fry his hand in the process.
He literally temporas his
That
hand.
was the I'm trying to think. That was like one of the like the higher ups in the at the police station. That was kind of funny. No, it was definitely funny, and he was also a piece of shit too. So whatever. I mean, that's like for me, like you guys said, like that middle. For me, it was literally from beginning to middle. It was just all just really and then towards the end is when I was like, okay.
Yeah, this movie is very famous, and some would probably say infamous for the opening scene, which is just this montage of debauchery, and a lot of like Japanese film historians, said that this movie really set the tone for 21st century Japanese cinema.
Oh wow!
And then it's very much known for its ending, which we'll get to after at the end, because to me, of all the movies, this is the one you need to watch without any spoilers going in, especially because of the ending, because it's like what?
It's you
wild.
do not see the ending coming at all.
It was,
If you
Like-
do, I don't know what's wrong.
it's so predictable. What are you
you.
talking about, Colt?
God, when you said that in chat, because like after Wenzel finished it, he was like, "Yeah, I saw the ending coming." I'm like, "You're fucking trolling."
Yeah, of course I am.
Lying.
Nobody could have seen that coming.
Before we get to that, is for the most part, like there's definitely some over the top moments, but it is a pretty grounded, relatively Yakuza
Oh
crime
yeah.
movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's realistic to a point.
2 point, yeah, and one of the various motifs of Miike's movies is he's very much interested in the outsider, like the people who are on the fringes of
Jared Leto.
society.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
obviously.
that bad movie.
And one thing I was looking up for this movie is just sort of there's a lot of really interesting sort of racial and ethnic politics underlying a lot of this movie, because a lot of the characters they're ethnically Japanese, but they either lived on the mainland or other countries for so long, so when they come back they're treated as sort of a minority. And I'm not going to speak like I have any sort of authority on this, because I'm just a fucking white kid in America, but that's definitely one of the more interesting things to like research if you want to read sort of the reading of this movie.
Yeah, that was. I will say that was definitely an interesting part, because there was like, there was a lot of moments, like because there was definitely that racial tension, because there was a part in there where I think it was Jojima, our main like police character. He was talking about he talked about rounding up all Chinese people.
Yeah, it was very much. There was a lot of disparaging language towards.
Yeah, and then
Chinese.
there's also a part in there where the Yakuza are striking a deal with somebody who actually can't who can't speak Japanese. I think he was Chinese as well. I want to say.
Yeah. And even though this is a Yakuza movie, it's mostly dealing with the triad, which is kind of it's based out of China, but it's this worldwide spanning, like very decentralized gang.
Yeah.
Like Chinese organized crime.
And
essentially.
there was even a part in there where Shojima was trying to look more into Ryuichi, and he went into what it would have been his or what was his old neighborhood. He was talking to two men who they said they're neither Japanese, but they're also not Chinese as well, which is also like, you know, a lot of Asians, you know, Asian Americans, anybody who's like mixed or you know, just that Southeast Asian, Pacific Islanders stuff have a lot of there's a lot of problems or identity crisis,
Like tension.
identity, you know, like, and also like how people see them, you know. Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Definitely like a layer to this crazy movie.
Yeah, definitely. And if I read right when I was doing my research, Miike's family was they're ethnically Japanese, but they moved to the mainland and then moved back and suffered similar discrimination.
Oh wow,
upon
interesting.
returning. So and that really, and a lot of his Yakuza movies really deal with that. A lot of people say the trilogy, the Yakuza trilogy he did before Dead or Alive, it's like the Black Society trilogy.
Yeah.
Really gets into that. But those are definitely, I think, more down to earth, like grounded dramas versus this, which is it definitely has some of that elements, but it does get crazy.
Yeah.
Because one thing I did think was interesting, like it starts so like strongly, to use that word, and then for the most part until the end, it plays fairly straight and subdued as like a crime drama. But of course, you know, Miike like punctuates this with like different moments, like we mentioned, you know, the pornographer scene, the woman full of shit, which is super jarring, but it's just sort of interspaced, I think, fairly well with sort of this police drama, this like crime drama between the dueling, you know, identities of these two people and how like they have very similar needs. They are humanized in different ways. They both have different flaws. Like Ryuichi, like he commits all these crimes so he could keep his younger brother out of the crime life and into like a bigger, like more substantial life and a job with an education. And Jojima, like he's sacrificing essentially his family in order to sort of maintain like, I guess like a press down on the crime, but he's losing his like relationship with his wife, and his daughter is alien. He seems sort of detached from it all.
Yeah, and then on top of that, Jojima and his wife and his daughter has some sort of terminal illness. I don't remember if they say
don't.
What it is.
No, they.
The way they were talking, it sounded like some sort of heart issue. But there was definitely this financial strain because the wife, every time he comes home, she's always like, yeah, this shit's expensive and we need money. And he's always like, yeah, he's like, I'm working on it, don't worry about it.
And later it finally kind of like, we have a moment where like he finally is like, I guess, being brought back into Earth, into his family, because he also has a moment, I don't know if you'd call it a moment of weakness, but like he kind of compromises his job and his morality, because he ends up meeting with a Yakuza boss and strikes a deal where you know, give me I think it was like they needed 2 million yen or something.
I think
200 million. They need 200 million yen, and you know, and he'll let go of all of his, you know, Yakuza friends and stuff like that or whatever, and he'll have to pay him back, and you know, there's that moment as well, and
in the entire movie, like, not only is Jojima fighting against the triad and the Yakuza and all the organized crime, but he's also fighting against, you know, his own like superiors in the police force, because a lot of them are very corrupt.
Or at the very least, just just like
apathetic.
Is like the police chief literally spends all day carving flutes on the rooftop
and playing them.
like he's so completely detached from the whole
Yeah.
scenario.
A roof that looks very similar to a roof that's in the next movie.
Ooh.
The movie we'll talk about next, and this one, they both take place in Shinjuku, just in different places. One of the big climactic moments, because we have Dojima, he's under the thrall of the Yakuza in order to save his family. But at the same time, as we mentioned before, the woman that was sort of trapped in shit, she was part of Ryuichi's sort of small-time ragtag group of criminals. Mm-hmm. And she was sort of drugged and coerced by one of the triad leaders. And sort of in order to get back for her sake, he and his gang, they ambush the birthday party of one of the high-ranking triad members, and they fucking light that place up.
Yeah, it's one of the more exciting scenes of the movie.
They literally kill everybody except for the triad leader.
Yeah, because he hides under the
table,
the table.
which man, yeah, that scene definitely was one of the more higher points of the movie. It was bonkers.
Also, can we say R.I.P. Big Bird in that scene?
R.I.P. the bird.
Oh man, I was so sad. I was like, no, don't kill the ibis, but the ibis died.
Yeah, sadly, the mascot died. And then this is also the scene just after everything dies down. Ryuichi's younger brother, who the big crux of Ryuichi's arc is he's trying to, like Pat was saying, make enough money so he can pay for his brother's education and, sort of keep him out of
I mean,
this.
that's why, literally the beginning of the movie, Ryuichi's brother comes back from America because the money that he's been making was what he used to send him to America to go to university, but now he's back.
Yeah, and like how Dojima is alienated from his family due to his job, Ryuichi is doing the same thing because his brother, I forget his brother's name. Hold on one second.
I can't remember it for the life of me. He was barely in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, but that was by...
No. Toji, right?
Yeah, it was Toji, because that was by design, because he's purposely distancing
Oh,
himself from
yeah.
his
No,
brother.
that makes complete sense.
Because he finds out where all this money's coming from, and he's definitely
conflicted.
And he's definitely not into it.
Wait,
but he gets brought in with this whole thing and ends up getting shot.
Yeah, because...
And this is sort of the first domino that falls that culminates in the climax.
I should say the reason being that he got shot was actually when Ryuichi is fighting the man with the man who's part of the triads, who's like, they come to agreement. He has a sword.
Essentially the birthday man, that he was the one that one of the survivors of the initial gunfight, and he corners Ryuichi with like his ceremonial sword, and he's going to strike him down when Toji arrives and shoots him in the back to save his brother.
And then after that, Inui, Jojima's partner, comes in and tells them all to freeze, and they just unload on him, completely just kill him. And that also kind of like, I will say the emotional part, like the emotional depth of the movie was actually, done really well, because Inui, there's a moment where like they're kind of like, there's a little moment where like he's spending the day with his son while he's also doing police work, and then after he gets killed, there's a scene where Jojima is just telling Inui's wife and his son that he's sorry, and that he's sorry, and that he's sorry, and that's all he can say.
Yeah, it was
pretty rough. But Inui also ends up killing Toji as well.
Personally, when Inui was dead, getting shot at, I was hoping it was kind of like RoboCop, where they just kept shooting. That's just me.
I mean, granted, they shoot him a lot, and he still survives because he managed to squeeze off one round that hits Toji, and he still lives even after that incident. He expires shortly thereafter. But like you said, it is despite all the weird depravity, and it adds an emotional like sink, because reason why Inoue was there, because he sort of took Jojima's place so he can finally have one day with his family. And then shit went down, and he sort of like, in a way, died in Jojima's place, essentially.
Yeah, and then by the time Jojima gets to what is now a crime scene, anyone who's left alive other than that one Yakuza boss he makes the deal with is dead or dead or gone.
And there was also a moment in there too where when the Yakuza boss confronts him, he's like, the Yakuza boss is like, you know what? I need help. I guess I'm in charge of the Yakuza now. I'm gonna.
All your debts are
He's
off.
like, all your debts are off. Can you help me? Dojima just puts one in his head. I was like, you know what? That makes sense. Just kills him off.
This event really sets into motion the events that will lead to the finale of the movie, because after this it becomes the bodies just start piling on because Jojima and Ryuichi, after Ryuichi's brother died and Jojima's partner has died, they're definitely really have a vengeful vendetta against one another.
Because Dojima intercepts Ryuichi's like heroin supply, cocaine supply, and has that completely confiscated. And then on top of what happened at the Yakuza's birthday, Ryuichi wants to sort of usurp control of the sort of the Japanese and the Chinese mob, and sort of insert himself as a major player, and that was sort of taken away when Dojima intercepted the cocaine, and so Ryuichi, it sets in motion his revenge, which we cut to Dojima meeting up with his family. Everything seems to be in order. They're going out like a day of shopping, and his wife and his daughter go to borrow the car, which leads to like an utterly shocking moment when the car explodes because of a bomb that Ryuichi planted in the car. And that hit like a brick. We did not expect that.
No, yeah, me and Pat both just like we fucking screamed.
You know, at first I was like, nothing bad can possibly happen now. But then I thought about it. I was like, there was that one guy who wanted to throw a grenade at Jojima while he was on the boat eating bananas. And then I was like, everything is too peaceful right now. And I was like, I literally said to myself, that car's about to fucking blow up. And then it does. And I'm like, wow, I am more sad.
And not only does it blow up, like Jojima is watching from the top of the building and watches as his wife and daughter are basically burst into flames.
Yeah, and it's not like a tiny explosion. It's like
it's huge.
It's very, very, very Michael Bay-ish.
Yeah, can't agree. It's very a lot of excess.
And then after that, we see Dojima carrying the urns of his wife and daughter, and that's a pretty intense moment too, where he's literally running his fingers through their ashes and just sort of like it's like stunned moment of heartbreak.
Yeah. And then after that, it leads to the final confrontation between Jojima and Ryuichi, which
Jesus Christ.
It's just escalation. It starts like, okay, it's the remnants of Ryuichi's gang, and then lone cop on the edge, Jojima.
And we want to preface this, like, I know we've said spoilers, but if you've not seen this movie and you want to, skip for probably the next, 15 minutes, because...
don't worry, I will have timestamps on our pages, but just know if you have not seen it, you have to see everything that comes before this, because what the finale is, it's like it just sort of completely blindsides you from everything that you've seen.
Yeah, and one of the when I've heard of this movie before when I was previously looking into Miike, and everyone says it's the opening and the ending, especially the ending, is really fucking bonkers, but that does not prepare you for what's about to happen, because they basically they're both driving in this field. There's like a bunch of shit with cars.
Yeah, they're playing chicken.
They're playing chicken. Ryuichi's car with his last two minions, they swerve off and they wreck. They flip, so they get out. So Jojima turns around and is about to drive right into them. And the last remaining henchman of Ryuichi
Although he has two left. One of them who has a penchant for like grenades and explosives, he pops one grenade and just decides to run headlong to the car, busts through the windshield, and then blows that son of a bitch into the sky.
And then
like after the explosion, the car's not there, and you're just like, wait, where the fuck?
But
is
then
the
also
car? And then,
the other guy throws a knife. Like,
oh yeah, he throws a knife into the windshield.
but no, he does that after the car's blown up and in the air. He just throws the knife, and it's like, okay, where's that knife go?
Yeah, well, and then the fucking, like, 10 seconds later, the car crashes down, and it's just a fucking, like, charred husk.
Like, crashes down nose first into the ground, and then the last hitman's like, hey, buddy, where'd you go? Don't tell me you're dead, even though you literally just saw him, like, dive-bombed his car himself, and he's sort of looking around, and he, like, finds his dead buddy's, like, hand, and all of a sudden you hear bang, 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 and he starts squirting blood like a fire hydrant, pirouettes of death, and then Jojima kicks out of the flaming husk of the car, and just, like, standing there, like, all bloody and staggering with the fucking knife in his stomach.
Yeah, he's tattered. His left arm is falling off, where he proceeds to rip it off,
Which is a badass.
and throws it aside. And you know, and this is already crazy. And then fucking Jojima pulls out a fucking rocket.
No, wait, hold on. Dojima and Ryuichi,
Yes.
they square up and just go pow, 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 just like trade shots, pump each other full of lead.
Oh yeah.
Then they stagger for a bit. They both fall down, but they're like, psych, bitch, you thought. And they step out on one foot and just like, I ain't
They
dead
kneel.
yet, bitch. And then Jojima,
This is a very anime
like
fight, by the
Looney
way.
Tunes, like Hammer Space, pulls out a rocket launcher, aims it at Ryuichi. Then Ryuichi pulls out energy orb from his fucking chest.
Like, it goes straight DBZ. Fucking Ryuichi throws the fucking spirit bomb. Jojima fires the fucking rocket launcher. It caused this, like, DBZ-like explosion that destroys the world. Cut to credits. In
That's
the movie.
literally,
cut to credits,
we're
the
not
end.
making this up. That is the actual ending of Dead or Alive.
And nothing was leading up to this that would say, this is gonna
Like-
happen. Everything was like underground, underworld, like Yakuza crime stuff. Stuff like that. And then we get a spirit bomb that destroys the world.
Well,
What?
like the missile, the rocket launcher, what you actually see him holding it on the letterbox page. You see him holding it as like a little background image. It's like, okay, like,
Yeah.
you know, but this Ryuichi pulls literally a spirit bomb out of his chest. Like there's nothing that could have hinted at his ability to make energy orbs.
It literally comes and for like just to try to explain how this scene made us feel, like a cannon is walking by as the scene is happening, and he watches it with us, and he's like, what the fuck was that? And we were like, we don't know either. We watched this movie and we don't know.
Like, you know, if it wasn't
Honestly, if it wasn't for this final scene, I wouldn't have given it, like, what I gave it. I'd probably give it, like, 2.5, personally. Because this final scene really pushed
Oh
it
yeah,
for me.
same for me. Like I was
Yeah.
originally gonna give it, 2 stars. I was like, all right, I'm gonna give it 2 stars and be done with it. But then I see this and I'm like, okay, this is a 3 star. This is 3 stars. Like that, literally, the scene just takes up 1 star.
Yeah, pretty much,
And-
yeah.
And honestly, like, the more we talk about this movie and the more I think on it, I think I love this movie more and more. like y'all say it's like, give it a 3. I'm thinking like 4.5.
You're disgusting. What's wrong with you?
Well, I also like the sort of, the more down, the sort of low.
Oh,
bits
of course.
the movie, too.
This is completely fine.
But it's one of those movies I can understand if this isn't your thing, because it definitely does sag in the middle. There is like a lot of character interactions and just overall drama that keeps it going along. But I could see how someone might not be into that. But yeah, that fucking ending just is the whipped cream and cherry on top.
Man,
Yeah.
like, I mean, like, if you're listening to this and you watched it, you know. Like, you know. But if for some reason you didn't watch it and you're listening to this, I promise you, we are not kidding. This is not made up. This is the legit ending of this movie. The world is destroyed, and somehow there's 2 more movies.
Because, like we said, it's just a trilogy, but they're all completely unrelated. So they can do whatever the fuck they want. I don't know what happens in the other 2. Probably maybe something just as bizarre.
Yeah, and they say the sequels are actually
But, you know,
pretty
also-
good.
The second one's apparently the best of the trilogy, and it's gotten me really
Also, the
excited.
second one has a subtitle that says birds.
It's
Yeah.
just birds.
Yeah, it's literally dead or alive birds.
Plus, like, as crazy as this ending is, like, it wouldn't have, like, it'd be crazy no matter what happened. It could have been like butt crazy the whole way through, and the ending would still feel crazy. But what clinches that ending is so powerful is just like how sort of almost mundane a good 70% of the movie is.
Yeah.
And then you just hit with that, and you're just like, it just knocks you flat on your ass.
It is what they call pure
Yeah.
cinema. It goes like in straight just bonkers territory, and it's sort of like after watching this movie, there's definitely a very this continuing motif, like thematic motif of how like violence just literally leads to everyone dying. Like we see that in Sukiyaki Western Django, and we saw it in this movie with the literal end of the world, and we're going to see it with the next movie that we're talking about.
I like to imagine director Miike was making this movie, and he was like, not weird enough. And then he put that ending in.
I believe it.
Yeah.
He put that ending in there. I'm like, that's probably the vet. Like, if that's how that decision to put, just like, if that ending was just one decision or one meeting in itself to do, I appreciate that.
And apparently that scene was not in the script.
Yes.
so he literally was just like, I'm going to put this in here, and literally the studio exec was like,
That is
okay.
He just like free balled the last 10 minutes.
that is
of this movie.
amazing. That is freaking amazing.
Because I would have bet that he had the ending first, and it's like, okay, how do I make this payoff work? And he just wrote this whole like long drama filled.
Well, I mean,
like,
he didn't write it. I mean, he just directed it.
I mean, I'm just kind of playing the game, like, you know. He had this punchline, and he wanted to get there, and he just sort of like, oh, I got to make all this bullshit, and then we'll have this.
But it was like, got all this bullshit, and he's like, alrighty, let's do this.
I think it's a very interesting movie. It like we said, it is a bit of a slower movie. There are definitely some very intense moments, and I feel like this is probably one of the more, it's hard to say grounded, but like
It is one. Even with this bonkers ass ending, it's one of the more accessible of his movies.
I think this will be a good place to take a pause, and we'll get right back with one of the most famous and infamous Miike's films. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. This is the second part of our Takashi Miike sampler pack. And now, we did want to say, this is the film that we've been sort of hinting at, which is like definitely the content warning of the episode. So just know there we'll be discussing a lot of graphic violence, sexual violence.
We should say what's in it. There's rape and there's torture, and
yeah.
what else is in there? There's a lot of heavy stuff.
I mean, it's literally rape and torture. Like, you pretty much covered the entire basis of the movie. So, you got it.
So just know this will be the more sort of content-intensive portion of the episode. So what we said is not something you can really sit through. That's okay. You can skip ahead to the final segment of the show. Talk to you there. For those who are still with us, we'll be discussing 2001's Ichi the Killer. And this is currently streaming on YouTube, Google Play, Vudu, Amazon Prime, and Sling TV. And Ichi the Killer is about the disappearance of a Yakuza's gang leader and his violent and masochistic lieutenant who's doggedly searching for his leader, All the while, a bloody killer known as Ichi is stalking the Shinjuku criminal underground. This is actually a movie based off a 1993 manga called Ichi. It's a 10-volume series. And the original manga was actually so graphic that it's banned in certain parts of Japan. And this film is so notorious for its graphic content that it was heavily edited in several international releases, and it's completely banned in certain countries like Finland and Germany and Malaysia. That really sets the tone of just how intense the movie is. The main character in this film is Masao Kakihara. He's like this sadomasochistic Yakuza man who has these facial scars and
Who looks really cool.
He looks. I will say, like, character, like, design, he looks really cool.
Yeah, he has like a Glasgow smile that's sort of kept together by
Piercings.
like these lip piercings, and I made a joke halfway through, but like I kind of halfway go with it. This movie is basically Batman. But I mean, I'm serious, because like Kakihara, like, he's very much in this very flamboyant attire, like a lot of purples and stuff. I mean, and he has like a Glasgow smile. He's like
very
the
much,
Joker.
yeah, like the Joker, especially with that clothing. I actually really liked his clothing too. Very nice
Yeah.
sense of style.
Yeah, and then, you know, the titular character Ichi, you know, he has this
Armor.
costume that's basically Batman without the cape.
I
and the
never
cowl.
want to
he
watch
does
this
have a yellow
Batman.
symbol. It's a number 1 on his back. That's what his name means.
Yeah.
What?
So and after he suffered a traumatic event, he's going around beating up and actually eviscerating all of these criminal the criminal underworld.
Yeah.
Also, he's a.
It's Batman.
Well,
I don't
what-
want to
what-
watch this Batman series ever. This is a terrible Batman series. Batman
Yeah.
should never
I mean,
ever do the things that this man does or thought about wanting to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
You know, I don't even know how to.
'Cause-
I don't even know how to talk about this movie because it's just so obscene. Like,
Yeah, like, and it gets to the point where, we were kind of talking in between segments, and Wenzel, you said that, like, you were kind of bored with a lot of
Yeah.
this movie as well.
yeah,
And I think it's just because the violence is so obscene, you just become desensitized. And
You're
numb
just
to
like,
it.
please stop. We don't need you to do the exact same thing that happened 40 minutes ago, where
That's
this
exactly
woman was
like-
getting beaten, and then she was raped by this guy, and then they do the exact same thing 40 minutes later. We don't
Yeah.
need that twice in this movie.
like
Period.
it was,
Honestly,
like,
we don't even need it in
and-
this movie.
like
It was-
yeah.
Yeah, I would argue you wouldn't need it in the movie at all. But it's
And
and the thing is, it's like, I'm not opposed to having any sort of like sexual violence, like sexual assault, molestation, rape in any sort of media.
it's a real
but
thing that happens.
with-
It needs to be
with
known.
subjects like that.
It's just that you shouldn't have gone about it this way, in my opinion.
You have to handle this with care. And the biggest issue I have with this movie is I get what the sort of, at least the theme I interpret of the movie is the cyclical and seductive nature of violence, and how and what violence mixed with the imagination, and trying to like search for that next thing, that next extreme that's going to get you off. Because a lot of characters in this movie are very like sexually frustrated, or they get like sexual pleasure off of the violence, either done to other people and or done to themselves.
yeah, because Kikihara is he was like his boss, Yakuza boss Anjo. The reason why he was so dead set on looking for him is because the pleasure he got from when Anjo would beat him. Like that's and like Kikuhara also wasn't, you know, from like his Glasgow smile and the cuts on his face, he also isn't he isn't afraid of also harming himself too, because there's also a part in there where he just cuts off his own tongue, doesn't care.
Yeah, that part made me cringe a lot.
Ooh, yeah, it was definitely hard to watch because it was definitely one like. I will say some of the effects, especially the CG effects, are very dated.
Oh
Yeah.
But
There's also, and we'll talk about Ichi because Ichi is just as fucked up.
Yeah.
He's he's kind of like this. It's such a weird character because like he's obviously a killer and he's killing these underlings, but he's also being controlled by some this old man
this
and
hypnotist.
this hypnotist and like and like that sexual frustration that we're talking about is also present within him, but a lot of his because in the literally the very beginning of the movie, and this is also where we get some weird CG, is like as he's watching this woman getting beaten by it's actually a prostitute and her pimp, she's getting beaten and then raped.
I think I could be wrong, but wasn't that supposed to be the boss that goes missing?
No.
No,
He was
that's
just a random
just a
guy.
pimp. It was just literally a pimp with his prostitute, and he was watching that happen, and he accidentally bumps into something, kind of makes a sound, but he's able to get away. But what the guy doesn't notice is that there's just
Huge,
semen, cum,
a
all
huge
over a
puddle
plant.
of cum.
But it's also,
Eh.
but also, whenever it starts dripping onto the floor of the balcony, they use this CG for it, and it looks really weird.
Dude, I was eating.
Well, and you're kind of burying the lead because not only is this guy sort of getting off to being a peeping tom to this rape that but that's where we get the title is out of the cum.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
The words Ichi the Killer float up from the cum. That so to let you know, you'll see some more CG come and just sort of just very
Oh my
uncomfortable
god,
violence later.
we do see it again later because later he's killing somebody and blood and cum literally spray on the wall.
Yeah.
But it's CG and it's so weird. Yeah.
I do think it's weird in one of the opening scenes, like after the old man and his cleaner crew go to the aftermath of when Ichi's killing. There's like literally blood slather in every surface. It's like but they had like CG blood dripping down from the wall. I figured like couldn't they just had like actual like fake blood they just threw up there?
Yeah.
There's definitely some weird choices with the CG, just in terms of like how it's used. But I feel like a practical effect would have been just as fine.
Yeah.
And Ichi, one of the things about the character is that he has this we don't even know if it's real. It's a false memory at this point where he attempts to he's getting bullied and a girl attempts to save him, but this girl ends up getting raped by the bullies and he doesn't do anything. And like he's constantly in conflict because he feels really sad, but also he wanted to rape this girl as well.
Like,
It's-
Jesus Christ.
And also, like, footage they used was just,
Yeah, and it's repeated multiple times throughout the movie, and it is really uncomfortable to watch. Definitely by design, but
yeah.
put a reductive summary on Ichi's character. He's an incel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially.
He is a nice guy incel.
And he literally has an actual nice guy moment later on in the film, like verbatim, what you would think, like, oh, I did this thing for you, therefore you should reciprocate with your affections and sex for me.
That part of his characterization and that critique of that type of person, I think, is one of the more effective critiques that this movie is posing.
Well, yeah,
It-
because when he's watching that pimp beat, the prostitute and then rapes her, he goes to where that prostitute works, and he pretty much gets like a blowjob from her, and he asks her if he wants her to kill him. And after her viciously getting beaten again and being raped, he finally gets in there and he kills the man.
in the most like Looney Tunes.
He has these like weird, like sneaky looking shoes, and out of the back of the heel comes out a blade.
Like
and he
a
does, like,
1 inch long blade.
Yeah, and he does like a high like kick, or not kick, but like
Axe swing kick? Axe kick?
something like that, where like he brings his leg down and cuts the man in half all the way to his,
Vertically.
into his torso.
He cuts him hot dog style.
Yeah,
Like,
and-
but this is definitely one of the dodgy 1999 CG effects
Yeah.
where he was just like this completely straight, like clear cut, meat on the middle. He just splits apart with goo strings, and then like just all the lunch spilled out of him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
then
and this is the first time we actually see Ichi on screen kill someone. Before this, we just see the aftermath of everything. That happens.
and then he goes to the woman, and he says, "Don't worry, I'm gonna beat you now."
Which it is a good like critique of the incel nice guy, because that type of person tends to think it's like, oh, I'm not a misogynist, I'm not a sexist because I don't, do the X, Y, and Z things, but they actually desire to do those things. It's just not under like the conventional masculine trappings.
They just don't realize that they're also a piece of shit.
Yeah, basically.
And
Lack of self-worth is deadly. Them not reciprocating their needs leads to more tragedy, because that same prostitute, she ends up dead by his hands, even though it's a really jarring moment where she tries to defend herself against him, and then all of a sudden her decks just get slit and then gushing blood.
Well, what happened?
Which I guess it's sort of like
what happens is she, like she gets the bat and she tries to hit him, but like he does he gets like really frustrated and does like a ballerina spin or twirl and cuts her neck. Like,
Yeah, he has a little tantrum because he's a little incel baby bitch that got mad when he couldn't get his way.
yeah.
And one of the things me and Pat were talking about after we finished this movie last night was, it says something when the most, quote, likable character is a Kakihara. the literal sadomasochist.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, too, is he's definitely the most charismatic character.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he has a cool design, and I mean, he just has this very cool type of persona.
He has a charisma about it, and I know that was something I remember reading that Miike like intentionally made Kakihara more likable than his manga counterpart, like making him more attractive, making his like wardrobe better to make him more appealing to the cinema goers. And I think in a lot of ways, I don't know, it feels weird that does work, because sometimes you forget for just short moments that like, oh, he's this weird, bloody, insane person.
Yeah, because there's like
and,
several serial killers who, on record from reports of like people who've interacted with them, they're like, oh, they're really handsome, or they're actually really nice, or really charismatic.
Yeah, they infamously about saying that about Ted Bundy.
Which he is ugly as shit.
Yeah,
and
Thanks for whispering.
I was just saying that Ted Bundy's ugly as shit.
I agree, but that's what a lot of people said. But yeah, and I kind of was looking up just panels of the manga just to compare, and definitely Kakihara is more monstrous in design in the comics or in the manga, and I think that making him more like an attractive design really highlights how these horrible people are not they are monstrous, but they are not monsters. I mean, they're humans.
And
humans are completely capable of this level of
because monsters is a term that refers to something that's imaginary, that doesn't exist. Kakihara is a person, and he's gonna look like a person. He's not gonna look like some kind of dark creature creeping in the night. He literally is gonna look like a human, which he honestly didn't look human. He looked pretty crazy,
especially in the one scene towards the end of the movie.
Yeah,
that we'll get to.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think because a lot of people tend to use like, oh, that person is a monster, to kind of dismiss the fact that it's like, oh, he's an abnormality, and to an extent that person is, but I think it also kind of undersells the fact that, yeah, like, people are completely capable of doing these things, and they're not necessarily insane, they're completely in their right mind, they're just this malicious.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because it can't always, because I mean, if everybody pleaded insanity, all these horrible, terrible killers would get off.
it's kind of hard to talk about this movie going in sort of like plot order, like we did with the first two. And part of that too is because even though like we said, this movie is very graphic, it's very violent, and as I said before, at a certain point, it just you just become numb to it, and some of it is like legitimately like framed comedically.
Like whenever the guy was hanging up on the hooks and he was torturing him from there?
Not necessarily that. The thing that I was thinking of is Ichi's first like killing spree, where he where his the hypnotist that's sort of controlling him and telling him to kill these people. He's like, oh, these are the bullies, you need to go after them. And he goes into this room, and all you see is just this torrent of blood that shoots out the door,
like CG blood.
Yeah, and it looks legitimately like wacky, like it's a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Like you see, like flying out, like head over heels out of the door. You literally see somebody's like face splat on a wall and slide down in blood.
Like you can't help but like laugh, just because of how absurd it is. Like, and it's not just blood; it's like you said, like faces, body parts, intestines.
Yeah.
And then when there's a famous screenshot of the film where Kakihara is looking at the aftermath of this, and it's just, I think it's actually the photo on the letterbox.
It's the letterbox header for the movie.
Yeah, and it's just it doesn't even look like people. It's just viscera and gore.
It's just like raw hamburger meat and just like body parts just strewn, and the whole room's caked in blood. That's part of the scale of it. It's just like how absurd the violence is, and just knowing Miike like does these intentionally provocative things to make a statement, but something that Jonathan and I had talked about, there comes a point where you have to recreate the thing you're commenting on, and when you do it to like a certain level, it's kind of hard to separate the thing you're critiquing to what you're actually doing. And another problem with Miike, like he definitely has a tendency to revel and whatever violence having reproduced on screen.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people will say you really can't make an anti-war movie because war in the lizard part of our brain is just inherently, stimulating and exciting. So, it's, when you see like a lot of very, very pro-military people who say their favorite movies are like Apocalypse Now and Full Metal Jacket, it's like, how do you not see that
these are all anti-war movies?
Yeah, these are satires or parodies,
like the horror,
or just like of all like criticisms, but because they have to recreate that to order and comment on it.
Yeah, because it shows the horror, especially in like when you look at Full Metal Jacket, like with the training of the Marines, and then how they treat the Vietnamese people. It's like when you because I remember being around so many of these jerks who were like this, who were just like, oh yeah, this movie's awesome, like this is awesome, like no it's not. you have it's just physical, mental abuse.
And to sort of put it in to kind of just use Full Metal Jacket as an example, I saw that movie admittedly way too young. Because
I was in the same boat.
Because I remember there were definitely parts of that movie that really affected me. But like specifically the opening like 10, 15 minutes of that movie, I used to think were fucking hysterical. Because, just dumb, edgy teenager, you have R. Lee Ermey just screaming all these obscenities at these people. But now looking back on that scene, it's horrifying at how dehumanizing.
Yeah, and like, and if I was ever in that situation, I would want to put up with it. I would cry. Yeah, I wouldn't want to put up with it. I would just leave, or I would punch him in the face. Like, I don't.
Yeah, but in the context of Vietnam, you can't.
Nope.
And then just to bring that to this movie, to Ichi the Killer, because that's the thing. I think thematically, this movie is really thought-provoking and really interesting. Just of talking on how violence is very seductive and cyclical. Because one scene I thought, let's kind of go off on a tangent, that did this effectively was when Ichi ran into those kids. That
Oh yeah, and he
that were
fucking
bullying.
kicks the kid.
Yeah, where he kicks the kid, and it's this very, relative to the rest of the movie, it's not that violent, but he does harm a child.
No, it's insane.
But then again, at that
But-
point, I was like, "Fuck them kids."
So yeah, fuck them kids, fuck them. But then you see the kid who was getting bullied later on in the movie. He's like, I want to be like this man who saved me. I want to be violent and powerful, and I think that sells the theme of the movie better than just all the violence, the rape, and everything else.
Yeah, because that kid, I think his name is Takashi. His father was actually was part of the Anjo group, which is what oh my god, I forgot his name already. Kakihara was leading. Anju was the man, died, so they just called themselves the Anju group. He was a part of that group, and he was dedicated to that group because he originally was a cop, lost his gun, but he was like an Olympic level shooter. And he was getting beat up one day, but he was saved by the Anjo group boss, and they took him in, and he just became a part of the Yakuza. And that's also another example of like how using violence to solve matters, to solve conflict, it's just this horrible cycle. And but my biggest problem with this movie is, besides the fact that there's tons of just obscenity, is that like, for the most part, like, when I say it's boring, like, I really, like, it didn't interest me. Like, the violence and the gore and stuff, it was just, I looked at it and I was just like, I would cringe. I was like, it's just disgusting. It was awful. But then Kakihara, his little quest, it just, he goes from like torturing person to person, and then like later they just, they find out Anjo, the boss that he's looking for, is dead. Like, he was killed in the
and has been dead.
He's been dead for the
dead
entirety of the movie, and then his group is thrown out of the Yakuza. So like now Anjo's group is like fighting against the Yakuza, but they don't really fight against the Yakuza. They never come to conflict again. And then the rest of the movie is just kind of them looking for Ichi.
Now I will say that they're talking about that. There is one scene that I genuinely found funny.
There was one. Yes, I think we're talking about the same one.
When they officially kick Kakihara and his posse out, and he's like, all right, he walks out the door, and then walks back in. He's like, oh, by the way, I'm taking over the Anju group, and walks back out, and everyone is like, fuck!
Oh yeah, I thought that was funny too.
That's not even the scene I was talking
What?
about.
Huh?
I was thinking of the scene where the old man takes off
Oh
his
my
monkey,
god!
and he's a huge buff guy.
It is.
I forgot about
I
that.
forgot about that
God,
too. There's literally a part in the movie, okay, where one of the last guys remaining in the Anja group is out to take a smoke, and then the old man who's the hypnotist who's been hypnotizing Ichi, he's like, you're too much of a gorilla for Ichi to worry about. So he takes off his clothes and he takes off his shirt, and you just see this washboard abs. I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting. Takes off all of his clothes. Bodybuilder, literally a bodybuilder body, with his head poorly
photoshopped
put onto this man's, and he's even wearing the bodybuilder like thong or whatever, and he's literally flexing like a bodybuilder, literally doing poses. And then
That's the
And
only
he's, like,
part
oiled
that
up
I
and
lost my
everything.
oh
shit.
my god, it was so freaking good. And he literally breaks this man, like he breaks him.
Grabs his head, you hear a cartoon sound, and then it cuts to Kakihara gang and their suite. They come out, and you just see that dude's like crumpled body, like just squished on the floor. And you're just like, yo, that's messed up.
That was an insane scene. Wow.
Yeah, but I totally agree with what you were saying, Wenzel. Like, the actual like sort of plot of the movie was definitely,
It just wasn't. It gets lost because it's like, if they would have kept up this bit of Kakihara, like Ichi is some like undiscoverable killer and he's holding Anjo hostage, but also Kakihara is also looking for somebody to match his sadomasochistic desires, like this showdown, like,
Yeah.
and then even in the end though, like this it was pretty I don't want to say crazy. It was definitely something.
Yeah, like, and even like outside of like the viscera and violence, like you said, this movie is very unfocused. Like it's all over the place, and there's a lot of redundancy. I feel like even characters that feel redundant, because like the older brother to the kid who's also part of the Anjo group, to me he just feels like a lighter version Ichi's character.
Kaneko, the father of Takeshi.
Yeah, because he goes through like this a similar type of arc.
Well, we don't. Do we?
But-
I mean, I'm not even looking at anything. Do we know if Kaneki was his actual older brother? Because the hypnotist just said, "That's your older brother. Make sure you say hello." Like, that's it. That's all we got.
Yeah, and there's like this intentional ambiguity, especially at the end of the movie, where like, is Kakihara really dead? I don't know.
That was actually
but
that
like,
was actually
it's
one
just-
thing I did look up. Yes, what happened? Should we go into the ending? I guess.
There is a couple points I wanted to make. I want the ending to
Yeah.
be its own conversation because
Okay.
there's a lot going on. One of the big things I took from the movie that we sort of touched on was the incel nature of Ichi. Is that what I found so, I guess, striking about his character? What they showing how dangerous these sort of milquetoast young men are, because they are nothing. They have like the potential to become something like dangerous because they feel disaffected. They feel disenfranchised.
alienated.
All those feelings sort of stew up, and they sort of just in their own head, and that kind of turns into the negative thoughts. But even more than that is how easily manipulated and molded they are, which we see to this day. Like all these young men online who are sort of alienated, and then they're sort of co-opted by these bigger hate groups, and they turn them into weapons, which is what happened with Ichi here.
Yeah, and it's a very intentional thing. Like, something a lot of people don't realize was like Steve Bannon kind of weaponized a lot of Gamergate, and it's very much, you see that with the hypnotist who's just kind of nudging him along and telling him, oh, you can do so much for society, you can be this hero, but at the end of the day, he's committing these horrible atrocities.
Yeah, I mean,
But in his messed up psyche, that's he thinks he's doing what's right.
Which I think is like one of the biggest statements from the film. And the other is sort of like imagination being placement for reality. When reality is insufficient to your needs, you create this imaginable thing that provides you in its place, which is what Kakihara's character is about. Like,
Yeah.
because like he constantly wants this dragon he's chasing in terms of like fulfillment, but he can never get it because one, he's become numb to all the violence he's committed, but also he's imagining this impossible ideal that he can't catch. And I think that's a very powerful statement in the film. And plus, as Akihara becomes numb to all the violence that he's done, I feel like in a way you can become numb to all the violence in the movie, just because it's just sort of a bombardment of just visceral content.
Yeah, and if the movie, and this is where the movie, I think, debatably succeeds, is because, like, yeah, I mean, it does become, kind of rote by the time you get to the end. But talking about Kakihara's sort of character arc, and another character we haven't talked about yet, whose name is legitimately Karen.
yep.
Which, like, just sort of a pet peeve. Like, why was she, like, going in and out of like English and Japanese?
I don't know. I think it was just a Takashi thing. He said,
Like,
"Fuck it,
to
do
me,
it."
that just definitely felt like very incidental. Is like, oh, I'm just going to do this because I'm quirky.
If she's like this escort, she's showing like how refined she is. Like if she's able to more or less seamlessly jump between multiple languages, it's like I come highly regarded. Like I'm a very skilled
okay.
escort. So like her demonstrating all her different abilities on top of her attractiveness makes her a more valuable asset to these high-paying men seeking company. Mm-hmm. But I guess a damning thing about her character that she's very much in the same position. Like she's a very sadomasochistic person. Like she's actively longing and engaging for like dangerous physical and sexual behavior, and that ultimately becomes her undoing.
Yeah, and Kakihara even gets like, because they kind of have this quote relationship where, he wants her to beat him to a pulp, but he just keeps saying, he's like, you are not this type of person, even though she's trying to, I hate to say self-actualize, but and she ends up basically trying to seduce Ichi, who then kind of has a mental snap and ends up killing her.
Because she's chasing an idea of this pleasure through violence, and then she realizes that it's a much darker, much more visceral thing than she's ever prepared for, and she pays dearly for that.
Yeah, and the same with the former cop. The same with Kakihara himself. Like, the only time he gets the satisfaction is as he's falling to his death.
And I think now you bridge that gap, getting into the finale, we have the remnants of the two groups. We have Ichi and we have Kakihara, and their sort of final confrontation, where Ichi sort of has Kakihara on the ropes for the biggest part of this, but then Kaneko undercuts the moment by crippling Ichi by shooting out his legs, and this sort of breaks Kakihara's high. Like he was right there. It's like I was fearing for my life, and he took it away. And then Ichi sort of reduced to this blubbering mess, even though he always sort of, because of his psychosexual trauma, like he always is crying and screaming whenever he's perpetrating his violence. It's just here, like he's completely ineffective now. Like he can't do anything.
Yeah, and he also killed Kaneki.
Oh yeah, that was rough.
Yeah, because what he does is he does his like signature kick or whatever, cuts Kaneki's throat. But literally, after that happens, his son is also on the roof of the building and comes up to see his father die in front of him.
It's another this second movie out of the ones we've talked about where a son gets to watch his dad die.
Yep. And then the little kid gets decapitated by Ichi.
Or Desi.
What happens is, Kakihara is like, "Ah, man, I lost my high. Like, you selfish." Like, he's talking to Kaneki's dead body. The kid comes over to the blubbering mess that is Ichi and starts just kicking him, just beating the crap out of him. And we have this moment where Kakihara is like, he decides to take his like pins, his pin needles, and stick them in his ears, and he makes himself deaf. And then everything turns into this like blue grayish hue, and you see him look up, and Ichi has cut off the head of this kid, and it's like a weird moment where it's like, what? It's like even with everything that's happened, it's still just kind of like shocking. And he drops the head, goes over, and attempts. He not kicks him, but he does his signature move, and the blade doesn't make it all the way through. It cuts his face, and then he ends up doing like this. He ends up getting kicked and doing this flip onto the railing, and then finally falls to his death. And the hypnotist comes up to his body to investigate it, and when he looks at his head, the cut that we see isn't there. And then there's like kind of this flash where I guess Kakihara is like maybe in hell or something, because he's like in some kind of like tub, and it's like blue hue again, and the hypnotist kind of like doesn't smile, and then there's another flash where you just see the kid still kicking Ichi. And I looked up, and what it is that Kakihara does fall to his death, but in that moment he just imagines what happens with Ichi. So in reality, Ichi is still on the roof crying, getting kicked by this kid, and Kakihara just fell to his death.
So the blade to the face was
completely
just
a hallucination, just something in his mind.
Because essentially, because he can't get to his high anymore, as I read it, Kakihara commits suicide because like he was so close to the edge and he can't get that anymore. So he decides that he jumps off, and so he imagines one last time what would have been his final high. But even though we have this sort of weird moment, there's still this strange ambiguity to the ending that I had no really clue what happened, because you see a tree with a man's body hanging from it and an older boy, and from what it sounds like, from what I've read, the body that's hanging from the tree, that's the old man hypnotist, and the boy is an older Kakeshi. because that is I guess a reference to the manga where at the end of the manga, Ichi is he's defeated, but he goes on to be essentially live like a normal life. And the old man, he takes Takeshi and starts molding him to be a killer like he did with Ichi. That ended the manga, ended the movie sort of flipping the script where ostensibly an older Takeshi rebels against Gigi and kills him. But it's still like a very weird, ambiguous choice to end the movie on.
Yeah, it's definitely intentionally muddled, and I don't know how effective it is.
Yeah.
But kind of talk on that similar point, one of the things I do admire about this movie, and Dead or Alive does good as well, is subjective filmmaking, where the camera move, just all the camera tricks that's done really informs the viewer on the fractured psyche of the characters. Mm-hmm. Like, especially with the segments focusing specifically on Ichi, it's very fragmented. It's a lot of shaky cam, very slowed down, sped up sort of things. And I think that's really effective. And it just, this movie frustrates me because there's a lot about it I really enjoy, but then there's just as much, if not more, that really brings it down. Like, even outside of the violence, I feel like the script is not as tight as a lot of, this movie, out of all the ones we watched, it definitely felt like, oh yeah, this movie was made in 2 weeks, but because of Miike's just frantic schedule, it just felt like this movie was, it definitely has some artistic merits, but it feels like it was churned out.
I can see that. Something also, I don't know if we mentioned it, but a really good scene in my opinion, and another really weird use of CG was when this guy Long, he tries to punch Kakihara in the face, but beforehand Kakihara takes out his piercings for his smile, and when he punches him, literally his hand his mouth opens and his hand goes in, and it's just this weird CG moment where he just looks like this monster devouring this man's hand.
It's like a snake.
And he kind of reminds me. This was on one of our I think cryptid episodes or whatever a while back, where somebody talked about this Japanese folklore. There's this spirit, this woman who.
The split mouth woman?
Yeah, split mouth woman who will ask you, if you think she's pretty. Literally looks like that, and he actually, when he pulls his fist out, he literally tears off the top half of his skin. It was pretty crazy, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was one of the scenes I knew was going to happen, but even then, it was just what the fuck?
Just seeing that guy pull his hand back out of Kakihara's mouth, but Kakihara's teeth scrape off the flesh of the man's hand. You just see
his bones,
and the tendons. That's sort of like whoa, big sort of crazy moment. To Jonathan's point, even though I gave this movie a 2.5 out of 5, I feel like yes, of course there's the objectivity of the violence in it, which is a whole other thing. But to me, I don't think the movie is bad. It's just I don't feel like it's the stuff that it does outside of its gratuity is really to my taste and interest in storytelling. To me, I'm more ambivalent toward the movie than outright disliking it. And just on top of its very idiosyncratic storytelling and just sort of the visceral content, it is hard to watch and it's hard to recommend ultimately, because I was very interested to see this is one of, if not his most well-known and most acclaimed movie, and I was wondering what the reaction would be from the group once we saw it.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where as we've had this discussion, it's there's a lot of thematic relevance and character relevance to the violence and stuff, but it still has this air of literally being edgy for the sake of being edgy.
Shot for the sake of shot.
Yeah, and to me that part of it is nowhere near as interesting. Just that intentionally provocative, and there's nothing wrong with being intentionally provocative, but I don't know. I don't think the point you're trying to make by being this provocative is strong enough to warrant it.
I mean, when you have something provocative, but then you also have something that's kind of like has substance to kind of go with that, makes sense, or it works nicely. But this, like, to me personally, there was no substance. It was just provocative, obscene.
Like, and the thing is like, I disagree slightly. Like, I do believe there's substance there, but I think just the excess and extremity of it undercuts that.
And that's fair. That's completely. I can understand that. That definitely is.
Which honestly, I think is honestly worse than it having a lack of substance.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't recommend the movie at all. That's just my opinion.
Personally, I hate this. I did not like the violence. I thought the story was it was a little
Yeah.
I didn't really care for it. Just chill with the violence. Stop it. Chill. If I watched this as a 13-year-old, I probably would have loved it because I was an edgy little shit.
Oh yeah,
I
I was
guarantee everyone else here would probably do the same thing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But now that I'm an adult and I understand what happens in life, all of this is bad. I hated it. I don't want to watch it ever again. And I honestly don't think
that was
people
something
should
I
watch
was
it.
telling
I hate
Colt,
it.
was that literally while I was watching it, I just kept looking at my phone and the time. I was like, when is this movie going to end? Like 2 hours, man.
Yeah, like me and I think Pat as well, we were kind of, we were engaged enough with the movie, but there was a point we had to pause it, and I was like, okay, it has to be, almost over. And it was like almost 30 to 40 minutes left, and I was like, fuck!
Kind of like with Dead or Alive. They had a climax and it was winding back down, but then it still has this extra chunk of movie to go. So as for me, in terms of recommendation, it'd be a very cautious recommendation. I'd be cautious who I spoke with about, who I recommended to, because
I think I'm more with Wenzel and Cole.
Hey.
Like, I don't think, like if you are interested in like looking at Miike's work and you have not seen this movie, like definitely check it out. It's one of his more important movies. But outside of that, like I couldn't recommend this to average Joe Schmo moviegoer.
No, because like my big thing is I always want people to form their own opinions. I don't want to tell people
100%.
Everyone should understand for themselves and see for themselves to form their own opinion.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And what's kind of fucked up is apparently this is not his most fucked up movie.
What?
Yeah, there is one movie Jonathan and I discussed briefly after this called Visitor Q, and just reading about it.
Oh.
If you thought some of the stuff in Ichi the Killer was bad,
just like reading, like if we were on YouTube, I think we would get demonetized for explaining the plot.
Yeah,
it's
What?
It's that fucked up. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, I gotta say, Audition's nothing.
Oh, Audition's nothing. Like, I mean...
Ooh, she ate some vomit, or he ate some vomit. That's gross.
Hey.
Yeah. Oh, she cut off his foot with piano wire. That's child's play.
I could recommend Audition. I couldn't recommend this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think Audition is probably my favorite of his movies, and part of it is it is there are like fucked up moments, but it's more mature and restrained. Whereas this, similar to Kakihara, I felt like Miike had to, because he was known, he at least gained like worldwide recognition with Audition, and Audition was very notorious because everyone was like, "What the fuck?" It felt like this was like, oh, you thought Audition was fucked. Watch this, you know.
but it's just so weird as a director who made just like an uncomfortable movie like Ichi the Killer in 2001, and then literally this same year dropped the final movie of our discussion for this episode, Happiness of the Katakuris, which I would say is a movie that defies most genre placement.
The tone of this is about to change a lot. I'm just go ahead and say that. It's a
And
very
I'm glad we
fun
saved it for
movie.
last because it's so freaking good.
Like, I remember seeing the poster that's on Letterboxd for it, and I couldn't help but it gave off Housu vibes, and oh boy,
Yeah.
was that accurate.
You know,
Because this movie is
and the
same
tagline,
sort of wacky.
the tagline for it is the Sound of Music meets Dawn of the Dead, and I was like, what does that mean? And boy, was I surprised.
Because it is a musical, and like
It's also a comedy and also a horror movie and also a claymation puppet show.
yeah, it is just
As soon
it is an amalgam of all sorts of wacky fun shit.
So,
Man.
Like I feel like this is a personification of Miike's unconscious self.
it's just like his complete dreamscape just let loose. So to get into Happiness to the Katakuris, came out 2001, like we said. It is currently streaming on Tubi, YouTube, Google Play, Amazon Prime, and iTunes. And the film follows a family living in the mountainside that is running a struggling bed and breakfast. And as they sort of desperately try to get customers, once they sort of get a little bit of headway, a lot of unfortunate incidents befall the family and just leads into a spiral of bizarre episodes.
it's like literally like with their first first it's bizarre, then it gets bizarre again, and it just like as soon as the first musical number kicks in, I was like, all right, this is for me. I love this movie.
It kicked in. Spoilers, by the way. It kicked in.
They discovered the
whenever,
first body.
Okay, it's been. I first watched this movie when the quarantine started. They just recently watched it, so they're gonna be reminding me.
Yeah,
about this
because
stuff.
like me and Pat watched it today.
I technically watched it today too. It was like 1 in the morning.
And I did want to mention this is actually based off another property. This is very loosely based on the South Korean film The Quiet Family. So
That's also on Amazon Prime.
I will have to check that out at some point.
But the first
just as compared to two, because
the first guest
I can only imagine.
the first guest sharpens their key, like what they would, like this thing they have for their keys, sharpens it and just commits suicide, stabs himself in the neck, which is a weird way to kill themselves. And as soon as the family opens the door, bam, musical number. And like the son who was like a criminal, but now he's out of jail and he's kind of like helping his family, just starts like, it's so theatric. Like his theatrics are just, I love them. He's just like like it's just so good. It's so freaking good. Oh my god, I love it.
It's very much shot and choreographed like a Rodgers and Hammerstein type of musical from the 50s and 60s. It's just like when it says like the Sound of Music meets Dawn of the Dead, like especially the shots in the field and the bright blue sky, that shit is straight out of the Sound of Music.
Oh yeah, it is.
It's just
I do want to say we did bury the lead a little bit, because the movie opens with a young woman eating the soup in a restaurant when this claymation imp rises up from it and where it falls in love with her uvula, yanks it out, and then has this weird dithering journey of it chasing it being eaten and reborn and by multiple times. Like it gets eaten by a crow, then its eyeball falls into a makeshift teddy bear, which kills the crow, and then it's just this utterly surreal, like slightly horrific claymation journey of just like imp and how it leads into the family and their setting.
yeah, and it like
It never appears
ultimately
again.
unless
It appears, or not the bird. I'm
The
thinking
claymation appears, of course.
but
the imp
that
does
like
not.
imp, none of that has anything to do with the rest of the movie. And I wonder if that's like some like cultural thing that's lost in translation, or if it's just that wacky.
I feel like just knowing Miike, it's just a big long non sequitur.
Yeah, and just sort of how this movie is constructed. Yeah, I lean more towards it's just kind of this non sequitur that leads into this tale about this family who is
It's trying to survive, but also
just trying to
happy.
survive, because there's the main owner of because the family runs this like little bed and breakfast house, and they opened it up because the main patriarch of the family, he thought he was going to get this big retirement with his job. He gets fired, and he was like, well, I'm going to do this to sort of satisfy you know, give me something to do.
Well, no. What happens is when he gets fired, one of his friends tells him that in this area there's going to be a big highway that's going to be built, and if you buy this property and this highway's built, that means that you'll get a lot of customers coming in from the highway.
Yeah, but it turns out there's not a lot of customers, and then he runs it with his wife.
Their 2 adult children, his father, and his daughter brings along her young daughter.
Yeah, so it is a very, and they're all very like out, like they're all very wacky. Like his daughter is very like love struck and falls in love with like the first person that gives her attention. Her brother is like apparently was this ne'er-do-well and criminal who's like trying to reform, and like the family, like for like the first half of the movie is like, well, I think he did something to this body, you know, I think he stole this wallet.
He used to to do that.
And then the main owner's dad is just kind of this old
eccentric, because he literally gets pooped on by a crow, and he like lines up this shot and just flings a log at it and smacks the crow, and he has the dog eat the crow. The dog's name is Pochi, by the way. Pochi.
That was a great way to start, with just a log being thrown at the fucking bird, and he's like, yeah!
Yeah. Oh, man. So where do we want to start with this movie?
Well, we already kind of did.
I mean,
Jonathan.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, where we're at is they did a musical with the first dead body they find.
But then they do, I think they do another one with the second. Well, what happens is the second time, a patron dies, is they have this really, really obese man come in with his young, very, very young girlfriend. And
I mean, he's a sumo wrestler.
Yeah,
that was sort of what was implied.
Yeah, he's a celebrity, and he ends up having sex with his girlfriend, and he
emphasis on the girl because she's really young.
She's really young.
It's more or less implied that she's a high schooler, and they're having like this illicit affair, but then he's just pounding away, and then he like dies mid coitus, and then as he dies, he falls on top of her, suffocating her to death. So there's 2 bodies they have to get rid of, but one's like this very large man.
And it's sort of this comedy of errors as they're trying to get the body out the door and get it buried. And
out the window, that scene where it's like, okay, we're going to lower this sumo wrestler out of this window, and they just nearly drop the sumo wrestler on the grandpa.
Because the mom was like, he's not breakable. And so the father just lets him go. Like, oh my god, it was pretty funny. And but then later the daughter who has a child, she kind of goes out to town with her daughter because she's still, of course, looking for love. And the first kind of person she kind of attaches to, and she also has a musical number, which was great. The first person she attaches to is this really ugly looking guy who was wearing a naval uniform.
He's a U.S. sailor.
He's a U.S. sailor, British family.
But he's also part of the British Royal Navy.
Okay, yeah, dog.
Hold on. But if anybody's confused, let me tell you. He is in the U.S. Navy, but to be more precise, he's part of the British Royal Navy. But to even be more precise, he is a secret agent. And to be more precise, he's related to the royal family.
The English royal family. Yes. And the daughter, she's so naive, she sort of buys it.
Yeah,
It's funny because his name is Richard.
Richard.
So,
Dick.
yeah, and he is a dick.
Yeah,
Because she has like this big fanciful like flowery like song and dance where they like meet and they're like betrothed, and then that's all in her imagination, because it cuts to her just like literally writhing on the floor, just like humming the song, and he's kind of like, hey, are you okay?
and her
And everyone else is kind of like, what the fuck is this bitch doing?
and her daughter.
That was the first time I literally busted out laughing in this movie. Just her just like wiggling on the floor.
And her daughter is literally sitting there eating ice cream, just watching her do this. And it's such a funny bit too, because when she finally comes to, she's like, "Oh, look at this beautiful baby," when he's pointing to her daughter. And actually, there's a moment during the song and dance number where he's like floating or whatever, and then his neck breaks, and he's just sitting there. Like he literally hung himself. It was like a really weird moment. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, because as he's flying, like these windows fly open and the confetti kind of cannon shoot out, but at the same time, it looks like he got shot by the confetti. So he's dead for a few seconds, and he's resurrected by the true love's first kiss, and then they resume the song and dance.
Yeah, it's pleasantly bizarre. And then there's like weird moments in the movie where it's like it skips and kind of rewinds like a couple seconds.
I think that this might have been our streamer.
What was that? Our stream?
I mean, I was assuming that was our streamer, because what happened with us, we were watching on Tubi, which is a free streaming service, where it would kind of like, it would play a scene and then it would like go back like half a second and replay that. I mean, I was assuming that was just our streaming goofing up.
Yeah, no, that was you, because on Amazon Prime that didn't happen.
It just kind of, there wasn't any sort of breaks with it?
No.
Okay,
No.
then edit that out. because
You don't.
because
I mean, you don't have to.
I legit thought that was like intentional, because the movie was just so wacky.
Nah.
That it's like, okay, we're rewinding it a few seconds every so often. Okay.
Nah.
Nah, that's Tubi. Fuck Tubi.
No, fuck Tubi, I guess.
Tubi has a lot of free stuff on there, and like it's free with ads. We literally got one ad at the whole time.
Did we even get an ad with Katakuri? I don't even remember.
At the very beginning.
He just said it.
And also, Tubi is one of the only places where you can legally stream tokusatsu shows.
Oh.
So which is really good for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's why Pat knows
yeah,
about
that's
it.
fine. I mean, I never used Tubi. I'm not a Tubi hater.
Yeah.
But back to Katakuris. What an amazing movie. Oh my god.
It's a genuinely really funny, and it was very fun to watch.
It had me.
Down to the last minute, in my
Oh,
opinion.
For
really
sure.
loved it.
Like, I was just laughing, like hooping and all around. I loved it, man. Like everything, just about it. The music, the characters. Like we should say, like every family member is literally their own like just unique character. There's just something about them.
And they're all likable in their own way.
Yeah, because it's not like the grandpa is like, too old or like
Cantankerous in any
no,
way.
he's fun, he cares for their dog.
He really cares for their dog.
Yeah, he really likes Pochi. I like Pochi. The
Pochi's cute.
the father, just wants to have his family together. The wife just wants to support her husband, all like, and the son just wants to be reformed, and the daughter just wants to take care of her daughter while also looking for love. They're just all wonderful. Like, even though they're hiding bodies.
Yeah, the whole time they're just hiding bodies just to make sure their business doesn't go
Yeah.
under.
Because the dad is so scared that any sort of negative, like any press about people dying at this place will cause no one to go there.
Yeah, like,
So he's like, oh, we got to hide the bodies, so they keep burying them out in the woods.
yeah, superstition.
And and they don't intentionally kill anyone. I don't think.
It's all just like bad luck. All the people that die on their premises are just kind of like these weird happenstances.
Yeah.
Like with the main guy, he was suicidal, so he killed himself. And then like the couple, they sort of had this weird accident where they both died. And then the third incident is when Richard resurfaces. He's trying to pull the wool over Chizue, the daughter, even more. But he just like stumbles through the wood and drinks out of like a poison pond. So he's just like on the verge of shooting himself for like the whole like second half of the movie. And like she falls for it hook, line, and sinker. Like he's really covered in dirt and just like, oh, he's my Prince Charming.
And one of my favorite exchanges is he comes to the hotel and she gets him a room and she's like, "Do you want something to eat?" And he's like, "I want to eat you."
And she faints at this the statement.
And like you can just hear his tummy rumbling because he has to shit himself. It's and you know and
he doesn't go to the bathroom. He's just like fucking, just not shitting.
and
You just hear like the
Jonathan, at some point when you were shitting yourself, it just stops coming out and you have your own shit diaper.
but the thing is,
No shit.
the thing is though, he changes his pants later because at some point it sounds like he completely just obliterates his pants and he changes and he gives himself a haircut, which man, he just looks like a weird dude. And like they said, he tries to swindle her out of some money. And earlier there's actually a reference to him because the police officer comes over and gives them a post that shows people that are in the area that are wanted, and he's actually on it. And he notices that the grandfather notices this, and he goes to kind of spy on them, and he attempts to attack Richard with a piece of wood. It fails, but also Richard has to shit his pants, so there's that. And we also get a moment where like they turn into claymation and they're kind of struggling, fighting, and they go over a ledge that for some reason drops down into this deep ravine, and they're hanging on for dear life, and the daughter is like struggling on what to do because Richard's trying to kill her grandfather. And but she also likes this guy, and so she just she slowly starts to kick a rock off the cliff edge, and it hits Richard, and then he falls down to the ravine and quote dies unquote. And but later he crawls all the way back to the hotel, or no, not the hotel, the guest house, and he asks for a phone and he calls all these, I guess, people, women, and tells them sorry, and then he finally dies. And that's when also the daughter learns that he could not have been in the U.S. Army as part of the Royal British Navy as a
and like a lost descendant of Queen Elizabeth herself.
Yeah, because they look at his jacket and it's from some kind of like Hollywood company or something. I can't remember. Costume.
Yeah, it's a prop for
and
a movie studio.
Yeah. So Richard's dead. Thank goodness.
Yeah. How does it lead to the eventual, like, the whole house is moved? I'm trying to remember how
so
that
this
happened.
is
because I remember because it's a whole plot where the road that's going to be put in. It's sort of that runs through where they're keeping the bodies, so they're going to move that, and then actually coming out one last time. After, can we mention the zombie dance sequence when they try to go move the bodies?
Yeah, that was something.
of course.
They imagine this zombie dance sequence because the little girl, when she was playing in the woods, she notices all the bodies have been unearthed by like the geothermic activity that's been happening, and then they're all kind of like, oh, the bodies that they had like this big song and dance number with all the people that died as their zombies. So anyway, they come back from that and they see these police cars coming up, and they think, oh no, They found out about us. They're coming to arrest us. But while they're having this big song and dance about the grandpa or the son sacrificing himself for the good of the family, where the son gives his most flamboyant theatrical dance sequence.
It's amazing.
About being a man and stepping up. Little we know, the family doesn't know that their most recent guest is an escaped criminal who's hiding out in their house. So while the whole time they're doing this big number, the police are actually coming for him.
Yeah, but they think they're coming for them. So the grandpa is like, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take one for the team. The son and his grandson's like, no, I'm taking it for the team. And it's just wacky. And then and then they walk up to the police, and the grandpa like holds out his hands to be cuffed, and they just like walk past him.
And he just collapses out of embarrassment.
And when they do that, they're like, hey, this is your grandfather's. Give him back his towel or cloth. And I guess because he overhears that they're looking for this killer or whatever, he falls over. But I think because they come up with a lie saying that like, my father's senile, he's crazy, and then you see him fall over and he's like, oh, there's a crow, and then he like goes to, and he actually throws another log and hits it dead on, kind of like to be like, completely detracting from what he was, thought he was being arrested for. And this killer, their guess, what happened was they were actually digging a hole to move the bodies, and this killer fell in with these flowers, and the grandpa just started burying him, and he's like, the son's like, you can't do that, you can't bury him. So they take him back, and when they finally get back to their guest house with all the police there, the mother goes in to check on him, but this killer ends up taking her hostage.
Yeah, he takes her hostage, and there's just this whole bit where they're trying to bargain with the criminal, and he eventually lets her go, and then a mudslide happens.
Okay. No, what happens is he lets her go because the husband, the father, is begging, pleading, take me instead, because his killer killed his wife. I can't remember the reason why he did it.
Girlfriend.
But he killed her because he loved her. And the husband, the father's pleading, please don't kill her. I love her. Take me instead. So he lets her go. And then he's like, okay. And then he attempts to kill the father, but the son pushes him out of the way. But in doing he ends up getting stabbed. And there's blood on his shirt, and he falls down. And it's just this really tender moment where it's like everybody is saying, or there's like kind of like a song where, oh, we have such a precious son, such a good son. And then they lift up his shirt and look at the wound. It's a scratch. It's such
and like he's like, and he thinks he's dying, and he's just like, remember me when I'm gone. And then they're like, dude, and they're like, hey, it's just a scratch. And he's like, oh, okay.
Well, and it's so funny too because he tells like as he's dying, he tells his sister, he's like, sister, you're such a babe. And
you'll find true love.
And it's so funny because he's like, oh, I guess it is a scratch. And then he gets up and he just kind of like does his usual like tough guy walk and just kind of crosses his arms. He's like, I'm okay. And then that's where we get into the volcano erupting. It just erupts and causes a mudslide, and that's where we get into like the longest, I think, claymation scene in the movie, where as it's coming down, it's just a really fun moment. They're like, "Where's Pochi?" And they see Pochi, he's on a log coming down the mudslide. So the father runs up there, gets on a tree, and grabs Pochi, and is able to make it down there. And they have this moment where they surround the house, and they're like, everybody, hold hands. And like, no, and like, not like, it's literally everybody, including the dog. There's a moment where it shows the grandfather,
including the criminal, he's there too, holding
the hand of the dog. Because it's such a, like, you see this little claymation paw, and it's like, grab. And they all surround the house, and they hold arms, and they're kind of like, it's like the sequence where they're where the mudslide just completely just thrusts them, throws them somewhere, and they survive.
Yeah, and the house is completely intact, and they land in a Sound of Music
They
meadow.
land in Sound of Music meadow that appears to be Africa.
But it's like,
Yeah, and isn't that where the house went? Isn't that like where the road's going to be? I feel like I'm remembering something.
I think
there.
so.
No.
Oh, okay. It's not a happy ending.
No, like I don't. No, I actually, from what I know, the road, literally where they're burying the bodies, that's where the road, that's where the construction was going to come through.
Yeah, so they were going to dig up the
yeah.
bodies when they came through.
But
Yeah.
since the mudslide happened, it kind of like destroyed everything except for their home, which they got
it removed them from the situation.
Yeah, completely removed them from the situation, and put them in this idyllic landscape. And we have another just really nice musical number. And then we get into this really tender moment where it's like, I think it was like a year or two after, they're like, grandfather dies. And it's just, it was really sad.
Yeah,
I think it's because the actual like actor died.
Oh, really?
I
Oh.
could be wrong. I could be
Wow.
wrong. I know that actor is dead now, and he was in an old samurai movie. I don't remember his name.
And like, because after they have like this tender moment of just how to get into the family, that life will endure even if human beings eventually disappear. They will live to the best of their abilities until that day. And like the grandfather's having like this like tender like silent moment with the granddaughter, and she smiles back, and then the grandfather glows and it shoots up into heaven.
yeah.
And everybody starts to clap and say, "Yay!" And they're all, it's just, literally, that's what happens.
And smash cut to credits, and like, I feel like with almost literally with Jonathan and I, every time we finish a movie, it's just like, what the fuck? That was a movie, or we just burst out laughing.
Yeah, and all the movies, probably except Django, I was just like, I think I liked it, because didn't know how to feel, except for Ichi. But yeah, like this movie, like the more we talk about like this movie and the other two, like I really enjoyed these movies more than I thought I did.
Yeah. Yeah, I this is the first movie I watched because I was like, you know what? Colt said it was really good. He said I would like it. I'm going to watch it. And I freaking loved it. Ooh, man, it's so freaking good. 4.5 stars, baby. So, like...
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. 4.5. It's my favorite of the four we watched.
Like, no, I don't even know what to say. No competition. I don't know. Man, it like, man, it's just, it combined musical, claymation, horror, family drama, soap opera. Like, it was just wacky shit. It was just so good.
Yeah, it defies genre categorization, and it is just
Explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just start fucking coughing, trying to explain it. It's just, I don't know. I really recommend this movie. However, I could see where someone would really hate it.
Oh, for sure. Like,
but because it is very incoherent in places. If you can't tell by our frantic description of the plot.
I definitely think like it would be in a way a cautious recommend. Like it's like there's nothing really objectionable to what happens in the film. It's just you just have to require like a certain type of humor, a certain type of appreciation for like the strange and bizarre. Like I know if Liz and Cannon watched it with us, they would hate every fucking second.
Oh man, well they don't. What? They don't like fun. They don't like fun. Oh man.
I was about to say, if you're a cool person and you like to have a fun time, you'll love it. But if you're a bad person and you suck shit, you would hate it.
No, Liz like Houseu, didn't she?
I think
She laughed
did.
at it. I don't know if she
like,
liked
she
it.
laughed it. I don't know if she's like, oh, I enjoy this, or this is so fucking weird I can't help but laugh.
Yeah.
So,
Because it definitely has a very similar vibe to that movie.
which that was our favorite of the Japanese horror trilogy we watched. Like I said, it's the same when we did Audition episode 130. We did that last October. Go check that out.
Yeah.
And this was a lot of fun. Like I said, like with every one of these movies, just kind of like it took me a second to get my thoughts together about each of these, and for the most part, I enjoyed them all to an extent. And of course, this was my favorite. Django is number 2, and the thing is, we barely scratched the surface of Takashi Miike's work, and these are just 4 of his most well-known films, and I feel like these are like good, like a good base of coverage of what he's known for and what he can do. Like, there's still several movies in his catalog that I'm interested in checking out.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's sort of the question I would ask. It's like, after seeing these movies, would you want to look more into his catalog?
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
And I think I definitely would.
Yeah, I mean,
Just because and unlike other directors who kind of have their own shtick, I mean, he's really diverse in what he does.
Yeah.
And I mean, and he's done like literally over 100 movies, so you could watch just content made by this guy for years.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
The thing, out of all he's made 100 movies. I only hate one of the 5 or 6 that I've seen. So I think that's a pretty good hit rate, where I'm going to like most of his movies if it's humorous and doesn't include torture rape.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's funny. Before this episode, Holt was the first one to watch Ichi, and he told us about this, and we were all kind of like iffy. We were like, should we talk about Ichi? And then we all decided, like, you know what, maybe we should all watch it, come to a vote. But then the majority of us also decided to watch stuff last minute. So by the time we all watched everything, it's like, well, we can't, because we're gonna substitute Ichi for 13 Assassins, which is free on Hulu if you have it. You can stream it on there. But we were just like, it's so obscene, we'll just talk about it. And from what Colt has said, he really enjoyed 13 Assassins, and I really want to check it out.
It's actually a very good movie. It's a good, serious movie. It's not like the other 3 movies we talked about, where it's like silly stuff. It's a pretty serious movie. But it's really good, though. It's not like Ichi, I promise.
And I think we kind of covered the course here. This is sort of like our sample platter for a director that we had a lot of interest in, a lot of curiosity about. And I think this is, if you're anything like us, this is sort of just has whet your appetite for not only diving deeper into Miike's work, but also just exploring the body work of other directors. And I feel like this may be a sort of an episode type that we may revisit, like other directors' body work, just to explore the movies we always meant to see, and just sort of giving us an excuse to really sit down and take a deep dive through all of those.
Oh, 100%.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like something that I should say too was that I didn't expect myself. I honestly believed, like, crap, I'm gonna be one of those. I'm gonna be this again, where I wasn't able to watch one of these movies, or I didn't watch any of them. But I ended up watching all 4 of them, and like that added to my 100 movie challenge of the year. So that's pretty awesome. I don't mind doing this.
Like with this, I'm halfway through. I'm up to 50 movies now.
Oh wow, nice.
Wow.
Jesus Christ. I'm... let me look. I am very high up. I've been watching movies constantly because of quarantine.
I mean,
I'm going to be slowing down because I got to go back to work. But I am currently at... well, it's not loading. I want to say 74 out of 100.
Wow. I'm currently at 36. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us today on this this cinematic exploration of a very interesting and eclectic director. And be sure to follow us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Spotify, RSS feed catchers. We're out there on all of them. Be sure to like, rate, review, subscribe on other platforms. That helps us out, spreads the word around, increases our visibility. Just really keeps the show going. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at AYCH Podcast. You can follow us on Twitch and YouTube at AllYouCanHear. You can follow us on Facebook and Letterboxd at AYCH Podcast. And you can follow me, Patrick, on Twitter and Instagram at John Luster's Name. Follow my art on Facebook at John Luster's Name Art.
My name is Jonathan. You can follow me on Twitter at JONIIBOI24 and JohnOwnSon12 on Letterboxd.
My name, Colt. Follow me on Twitter at ColtD00. Just remember, Whip and Nene, have a blast, but do it inside. Please stay home. Please still stay home.
100%.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. You can follow me, Wenzel, on Twitter at WenzelBooking. Follow my art Instagram at World of Wenzy. Please stay inside. Watch some movies. Read some books. Do something
Jerk off.
inside. Yep.
I'm just being honest here. Just do it.
I
Just
mean,
do it inside.
Colt's not wrong.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Take care of yourself. We'll be talking to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.